We have come to this Living Wisdom session now. Today I want to talk about welds and fusions. But before that, I want to share a couple of Bible verses on this concept. From Matthew chapter 6, Jesus said, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, then your whole body will be full of darkness." So it actually talks about your perspectives in life. So if you have good perspectives in life, then it will affect every part of your life in a positive way. So as the bad ones. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 in verse 5, it says, "Casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ." Paul was actually saying that we need to identify the not so good thoughts, dismantle them in your mind so that you can actually find peace in your mind. We have a lot of arguments in the mind. It's not even us speaking out. It's just like within your mind, you're arguing within yourself. So Paul was actually saying that, find that, guys, dismantle that. That's how you can find peace. David Riddell actually said that, trace, face, and replace. It's actually the same thing. Jeremiah, he said, look, before we build and plant, we have to uproot, tear down, and destroy. So it talks about renewing your mind. Do we have a Bible study on that? Jesus, he was a man blind from birth, right? But his disciples asked him, he said, hey, look, was his blindness due to his sin or his parents' sin? And then Jesus said, no, none of that. This is just an opportunity for the Lord to show his glory, healing, redemption, and miracles. So, from here, I'll pick up one thing from the disciples. Perhaps the disciples might have thought suffering equals judgment or punishment. But the thing is that suffering is suffering, punishment is punishment. So this is something that we need to look into. All right, so welds and fusions. Basically, what is a weld? A weld is when two totally different ideas or feelings get stuck together in your mind. Things that were supposed to be separate, but somehow they became glued together in your mind. And this usually happens because of a big moment you went through the first time around. It's called the first imprint. And this experience fuses the two ideas or the two feelings into one blob. And that affects the way you see things. We call them faulty connections or defiled connections. So think of two metal pieces welded together. They were supposed to be separate, but somehow they've become one. And when they are joined together, neither is quite itself anymore. And if you don't deal with it, you will find yourself being confused, emotionally flooded sometimes, or even get stuck to the point that you can't grow up the way you could. And it's actually called arrested development. So imagine an adult throwing a tantrum like a 5-year-old, right? That is some sort of arrested development. Okay, imagine someone reacts to something without logic, without consideration, without wisdom, as if he forgot that he's an adult, or he forgot about his Christian doctrines. How did you get there? Well, because somewhere in your mind or somewhere in your life, you just stopped growing in that particular area, right? You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 30s, but in that area, you are still acting like a 7-year-old. So we all have some of that. So we do have to identify that and to find growth and healing from that. But remember, these fusions or welds, they don't have to stay in your mind permanently, right? And you don't have to keep feeling it. As long as you can recognize it, pull them apart, and you will actually start feeling cleaner in your conscience, freer in your spirit, or clear in your perspectives or perceptions. So it's always helpful. Now, I want to give you a life example from my own childhood. I have to talk about me and my dad, okay? Most of you guys know the story, but I'm going to share a little bit in a different light. So my dad used to tease me at dinner table almost every night, repetitively. And he would laugh and stuff like that. So I was a lot younger. And And even now, I could actually recall a list of things from the experience. First is my dad's heavy breathing. Yeah, whenever he did that, it triggered me like crazy. He would go like, and I knew he would have something to say about me, right? It's just a massive trigger for me. His heavy sighing, his unpleasant facial expressions, his mocking, scolding, like how he actually enjoyed himself as he teased me. But my sister laughing along. Okay, my older sister, she would laugh along with his jokes, and I would just sit there. Okay, and what about dinner time with my own family as a kid? With mom and dad and siblings, dinner time with my own family. Because whenever I sat there, I just felt like I'm gonna get it. Does that make sense? Being at home, watching Chinese TV episodes, they all enjoy that. And to be honest, when I was young, I went along with it. But ever since I came to New Zealand, I haven't even watched like 30 minutes of it because I really hated it. I actually connected it as unpleasant. It's just like, I'm not watching that because it actually triggers a lot of bad memories for me. So all these things, right? All these things happen simultaneously. As a kid, I connected them all together. They became fused in my mind, and internally I welded these items into one experience. So even when I grew up, when my sister laughed at someone else, I would feel humiliated. She was just laughing at someone else. It's got nothing to do with me. But when I was there, just that feeling, the sense of humiliation just popped up, just came on. Or if I saw someone watching a Chinese TV thing, I would walk out. And it's just like, don't like it, right? And over time, I made more conclusions based on this one unpleasant experience. So I've got a few things that I want to share. I would feel inferior when older men were at the table with me. Just out of nowhere, I would just feel it. I would fear father figures. I would I used to genuinely believe these men didn't care about me or anyone else. So I have my fair share of father's issues. I would feel deeply humiliated when I was teased. I would zone out when I saw older Asian men. Not as bad as dissociation, but I literally just felt like I've got nothing to say. I just felt like I just couldn't be myself, and I have to be on guard all the time. So these are the things. Now, so what are the welds? I came up with 2 or 3. For me, jokes and humor means humiliation and scorn. Laughter gets welded to being mocked. Being different means shame. For me, that was a big one because like my dad used to compare me with my pretty smart older sister. So like dad would say, oh yeah, you're not like your sister, And obviously, as a kid, I haven't discovered my own uniqueness, right? So for me, uniqueness gets fused with embarrassment. So whenever I'm not the same as other kids, I would just feel embarrassed. Sometimes, as a result, I just wanted to do what they did. I only found this out when I was older. As a kid, you didn't know, Being defensively detached means freedom. That's a big one for me because I pretty much like when we came to New Zealand, I just stayed at home for a year or 2 and then I left home. So I left home as soon as I was financially able to. Making money was not an issue for me. And I just thought, well, leaving home means freedom. But that actually affected us as well. Because like now we have our own home, as a married couple. And in the early stage, I still feel like leaving home is freedom. And then Helen would ask, where are you? Right? So yeah, as a result, I would feel either emotionally overwhelmed or emotionally numb or experience mental blocks because I had defiled connections in my mind. And they color every experience related to those things I just talked about. Like Paul said to Timothy, to the defiled, all things are defiled. Yeah, I can share that from my own personal experience. So until I learn to break it down, until I learn to detach them, until I learn to unpack everything, until I learn to find healing and a bit of grieving, because I really felt like I lost my childhood, so to speak. Like while other kids would get a lot of time and space to play, and I didn't actually. There was a lot of loss I felt like I had to grieve over. But yeah, I think I've reached the point where I can think about one thing without automatically bringing up another thing or the rest. So that's a good success, because when it comes to that point, then you're kind of healed, right? Okay, so there are two types of welds and fusions. One is conceptual welds and one is emotional welds. Conceptual welds and fusions are about ideas. It affects the way you see things. Say, for example, submission is not the same as subjugation. They are just ideas. It's not how you feel, it's just how you see things, right? But another type of welds is emotional. It actually affects the way you feel. Say, when I feel loved, I would also fear betrayal. So that's an emotional reaction. It's not just an idea. It's like, I feel it, you know? Should I love Helen? Because like last time I loved, I was betrayed. You know what I mean? So the two feelings fuse together. No, I'm just making a fake example. She should have said that about me. Sorry, Helen. So does that make sense? Like, you know, you fuse the two feelings together. So now I have some examples. We actually have 74 welds from David Riddell's therapy. And feel free to go through there, but I'll just talk about maybe like 10 short ones. Let's go for it. Correction means humiliation. Feedback feels like an attack. Therefore, you will feel easily offended. Responsibility means failure and accusation. Taking on more duties feels like more chances to mess up or to be blamed. Submission means subjugation. When I yield, that means oppression. I have no choice. Right? But by the way, submission is always two ways. Okay? We don't do one-way relationships. We always do two-way relationships. Even if it's the relationship between you and your parents or your managers or pastors, there are always two ways. You know why? Because you think you need them, but they need you too. You always have to remember that. Now I can speak like a pastor. You think, oh, I need the pastor. I need a shepherd of my soul. By the way, first of all, Jesus is the shepherd of your soul. Okay? Us pastors are mini pastors, mini shepherds. And in as much as you think you need a pastor, the pastor needs you as well. If the pastor doesn't have anyone to listen to him, he has no church, he's not a pastor. Does that make sense? That's always two ways. What about parents? You think they always have to listen to my parents. But you know what? When they get older, they need you to take care of them. So you think you need them and they need you too. Does that make sense? What about, you know, managers and workers? You think, oh, I need the money. But you know what? The manager needs you to work too, because they need to produce. They need you. Therefore, negotiate, mate. Negotiate. Okay, next. Apologizing means weakness or injustice. Saying sorry feels so wrong and unfair. Guilt means self-hatred. Feeling bad about myself feels like I have to condemn myself. Okay, guys? Guilt is only guilt. It doesn't mean you need to self-harm. It doesn't mean you need to hate yourself. It doesn't mean you need to incur judgment on yourself. Right? And that's why when you feel guilty, you go to the Lord. Okay? The Lord forgives. But a lot of us, we take it on into our own hands. I must judge myself first. I must hate myself. I must punish myself first. No, guilt is guilt. Self-hatred is self-hatred. Don't fuse the two together. Confidence means arrogance. Self-assurance feels like pride. Feeling misunderstood means punishment or rejection. People don't get what I say feels like a penalty. I need them to get me. Right. Feeling unheard means powerlessness or non-existence. Not being listened to feels like disappearing. Pleasure means guilt. Enjoyment feels spoiled or corrupted by shame. Have you heard of a thing called the pastor's guilt? Even when the pastor goes out for a long holiday and he still wants to preach elsewhere. And I used to do that. Oh my God. My wife Helen says, stop it. You go on a holiday, you go on a holiday. Stop thinking about you are a pastor. Your identity is not a pastor. Your identity, right? Because like a lot of pastors, they rooted their identity as a pastor. No, they're not. Okay, it's only a role. And that can change. Okay, I'm going to finish with a couple more. Relaxation, recreation means wasting time. Vulnerability means weakness. Trusting means being naive. I got conned last time and never again. You know what? When you close off one part of your heart, you also close off the entire heart from experiencing joy, love, trust. So you need to open up your heart and find healing. Yep. Oh, this is a good one. Assessing means judging. You can't talk about that person. No, I'm describing what happened to that person. I'm not judging him. Right? Saying no means never. Patience means passivity. Waiting feels like giving up altogether. Unable to sit on your hands. You just want to rescue. And being patient sometimes just means you have to sit on your hands. Just wait. Have you ever thought about why the Lord didn't show up as soon as Adam and Eve touched the fruit? For us parents, they would say, slap. I told you, you can't eat the fruit. You can't even see the fruit. You can't even touch the fruit. The Lord didn't do that. The Lord was actually, in the book of Psalms somewhere, it actually says that the Lord hid himself. He wanted to see how Adam and Eve would react out of the character of God, out of what they learned. Yeah. Interesting, eh? Faithfulness. Well, I think that's me. A good quick 20 minutes, and I've got 4 sets of 74 welds. So what should we do about this? How are we going to break out?
Three groups, numbers.
Or do you want to do some immediate feedback first, or
Any questions?
any questions?
Thanks for sharing the stories.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure every one of us will have one or two of those.
It's interesting what you breaking it down, because I think a lot of us would never have thought about all those supplements,
Right.
just the sigh or the breathing.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, Sarah? Yes.
Is that like you had an experience and you developed a thought about it and then you have a bad feeling? So is the thought and the feeling fusing?
Yes, that can happen too. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Questions now? Can fusions or welds be a good thing?
Yes. Helen can join. Well, if you join the two ideas together, say like working is enjoyment, or working is rewarding. Some people might think, I work like a dog, I don't get anything. Right.
I associate Malaysia with holiday. You can have good associate a place, a church, a friend, an experience with something positive, something good. That's a good weld.
Also, like safety, right? Like if you touch your hand on a stove and you burn yourself, you'll fuse that thing to like, don't do that. That hurts.
That's a good one. Yes. So the answer is there are good welds and good fusions.